This is the second workshop in the Growth Lab series. And Matt, I know some of this is repetitive for you, but growth is my passion, and my focus is really helping leaders in their growth journey. And I do that in two ways. One is I lead a CEO peer advisory group. Matt is actually part of my group. And we have about 20 leaders, CEOs, founders, and presidents of companies in the tri-state area. And we come together to help each other become better leaders, make better decisions, and drive better results. I'm going to let in the next person. I'm sorry, bear with me. Perfect. Hi, Ken, welcome. And I also help leaders and teams accelerate growth and maximize enterprise value by improving their operating model. So, hi, Ken. We don't see you, but welcome, and we're glad you're here.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late.
That's okay.
I'll go on camera here in just a minute.
Okay, great. So the focus of this monthly workshop is really to provide one idea that for you to really noodle through. It's not going to be an hour. It's probably going to be 35, 45 minutes max. But maybe the topic is a new concept, or there's a piece that's an aha, or maybe it's just an opportunity to focus on something that, oh gosh, I really need to focus on this and I haven't really thought about it the way I should. So it's really to help bring a new idea. I will share and send you either through after with email or through chat, a new tool that you could use as well. And the key is also to have a takeaway, something that's tangible that you could do that will help you to do something a little different and take some action in this growth journey. So that's really what I hope to accomplish today, and I'm going to get started. So today's topic is really the leader you need to become to scale. And the real question is, are you holding your organization back from growing and scaling? So growth is a goal of every company. And I would say right there, that is the problem, because growth's really not a goal. It's really an outcome. It's a culmination of leadership, a strong culture, collaboration, and relationships that are all driven by solid strategies around people, execution, and accountability. Last month's topic was, is your operating model holding you back? And I have a YouTube video of that, which I'm happy to share. And I'm not going to go into detail of everything, of course, we talked about, but there are some foundational concepts that I wanted to take a minute to share with you. Hey, Ken. Okay. So I don't know if you are familiar with this chart. This is work, it's called the Valley of Death. This is work done by Scott Tanis. And the idea here is there are about 28 million firms in the US. And as you can see, when you go left to right, only about 4% ever reach over $1 million in revenue. So what this is really saying is there's a lot of businesses, no surprise, that start up, but few scale up. Every business encounters inflection points. So regardless of size, in my last month's discussion, I talked about Starbucks and Uber. Every company, regardless of size, goes through these inflection points. And it's the idea, if you think of an analogy of, hey, I'm going to reach my goal, reach my pinnacle, climb that mountain. You get to the top of that mountain, and all of a sudden you look down and there's valleys. And there's, oops, just gonna let someone else in. And there's valleys, and the valleys take you down, and then you've got to go back up again, and the terrain may be different. And that's the idea here. So every business encounters these inflection points where what worked before stops working. And these plateaus, these plateaus or valleys of death require reinvention of systems, processes, and talent. And recognizing that these inflection points are normal reduces, oh, hi and welcome. If you could just put yourself on mute. Okay, hi Helen, hi Michael, nice to see you guys. We'd love to see you on camera too. But by recognizing that this is just the natural flow of a business scaling, reduces panic and also invites more of us, what I would call strategic adaptation rather than reactive change. So the ability to get out of that plateau or valley of death and moving back up that peak requires not only changes to your operating model, but it requires different leadership. Otherwise, your current leadership style will become a constraint to the organization. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today is as you continue to move up, what maybe needs to change and some things to think about. So glad we have all these people joining. So your leadership style, your processes and structure, even your people who were great, maybe great fit at the beginning, you kind of need to relook at everything and say, what got you here may not get you to the next phase. And you got to think about that, from a leadership perspective too. So think about, is there one thing that right now comes to mind that worked beautifully, the last year or two, and now as you're trying to take that next step, maybe isn't working anymore? That's how I would look at this. And welcome, Sean, and welcome, Michael, and welcome, Helen. We'd love to see you on video. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. So another concept that I want to just mention from my last workshop, just to kind of lay the groundwork, is we all have an operating system. In my little company, I have one, whether I created it intentionally or not, I have an operating system. And that operating system is giving me and giving each of you the results you're getting. So I would say that if you're happy with your results, great, then probably nothing has to change. But if you want different results, you need to change things in your operating model. So just something to consider as we move forward here. Okay, so signs that your operating model may just be misaligned is there's founder bottlenecks, there's a lot of firefighting going on, a lot of rework, decision-making is slow. And there's three key barriers to scaling. Today we'll talk about leadership, scalable infrastructure, marketing. And as over the next few modules of the workshop, we'll be focusing about some of the operating model, scalable infrastructure as well. Okay, so, growth doesn't demand harder work. It really demands different leadership and a different operating model. So think about it, when founders try to scale. Put yourself on mute. There we go. When founders try to scale with founder behaviors, the operating model breaks. Working harder inside a broken system doesn't always work. It's about really changing that system. And I'm sorry about the dogs. You like Zoom? The model that got you here often is the constraint going forward. So when we think about leadership, the topic for today, it could be the same person, but different leadership is required based on where you're at. And sometimes, I've talked to a lot of founders. I love when a founder will say, hey, I'm looking to scale. I'm not sure if I'm the right person to take this company to the next level. It's a good question to ask. It may be, you may be the right person, but then how do you need to adjust in order to move that forward? So, and first of all, thank you. And I know a few people have joined. Hi, Tatiana. Hi, Helen. Welcome. We'd love to see you on screen. So what I'd like to do is just start with a common definition of leadership, which, I would define as the art of getting people to want to do that which must be done. And as we look forward and you look at that valley of death chart that I showed you at the beginning, complexity, when you look at that chart from left to right, again, as you scale, the business is getting more complex. And this is kind of showing the alignment of the different stages, right? So we're going to go into more detail what some of the characteristics are and some of the leadership shift that needs to occur from being a doer and founder to all the way up being that architect for a leader that's scaling. Any questions so far? I know I've really tried to just level set some of the stuff, but love to just stop for a second and ask if you have any questions.
Looks good so far for me.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's get into detail of what some of these are. And I'd love to hear if any of these resonate, right? Because everyone's at different places in their journey, and it's not an all or nothing. There's probably bits and pieces. So this is the two stages that would be more the dependency trap. And it's really the dependency on the leader, the CEO, the founder, again, based on where you are in your journey, the president. So during this stage of growth, it's really all about sell like hell, prove the viability of your service and your product. And the founders, kind of the superpowers, are really the hustle, the control, the drive. When you look at this also, success seeds future limits on growth because it's dependent on the founder. And the bottleneck for decision making becomes with the founder. It's more of a hero culture. There's no real leadership bench. And a lot of times what you'll see is that firefighting mode. And the unscalable belief is if I don't do it, it won't get done. Any of this resonate with anyone or bits and pieces of this?
Been through this. Everybody's been through this.
Yep. Again, based on where you are. The
Yeah.
next one in the journey would be more of the functional leader. And the typical behaviors here are they're building functional heads. So you may have someone that's head of delivery, product sales, marketing. The founder does, or the leader does, delegate execution, but at the end of the day, they're still approving most of the decisions. And there's a beginning of management rhythm, which is great. But the focus is really on building departments, and the leader really wins by managing teams. So the strengths are functional expertise. You're starting to see those early managers and leaders begin to come about. And there's some processes, but the real growth risk here is silos emerge. The founder is still overriding decisions, so there could still be a bottleneck. And the managers act like super doers rather than really feeling accountable for what's happening. So again, it's not an all or nothing. People probably have characteristics of different things, but the idea is how do you continue to move up so you can not be that barrier in terms of scaling. So then as we transition to the areas where really it's going to help with breakthrough growth, is the first one is really about the enterprise leader. And this is where the company really runs through the leaders. The leader wins by aligning the leadership team. Typical behaviors would be the leader's own results. There's clear accountability, strategies cascading down the organization, decisions move down the organization. The risk here is strategy and execution drift if you're really not aligned. So those meeting rhythms and accountability becomes really important here. The strengths, clear decision rights, decisions move down the organizations, repeatable playbook, so there's repeatable processes. Leadership team owns outcomes. But I would say the growth risk is more the founder struggles to let go, right? We've all experienced that or are experiencing that. Strategy outpaces execution, culture dilution if it's unmanaged, and strategy execution drift if not aligned. The change in my shift here has to be my job is not to be the smartest person. It's really to build the system that wins. And then the final stage. I'm sorry, did someone have a question?
Yeah, I just want to ask a question.
Yeah,
So
hi, Michael.
how are you? Thank you for
Good.
inviting me.
Yeah, nice to see you again.
So this is all good stuff, and the inflection point I'm at now is what, to create more business, right, to grow. It's not business as usual, right? It's doing different things, and I'd like to hear from everybody else. Maybe you can are going to talk about that in this presentation, but it's not what I'm having a problem is it's not waiting anymore. It's really digging more. It's really uncovering more. It's getting out there more to get those opportunities to grow.
So is yours uncovering prospects? Is that the idea? Uncovering opportunities?
I think it may be process, it may be just a shift in how business was done in the past.
So are you
love-
talking about biz dev or are you talking about hiring people to do biz dev?
Um, it's the change in behavior that you have to do different things to increase the revenue, increase the opportunities. So
Yeah.
this inbound marketing now, more attention on, getting people to call you versus always outbound everything. So I like to hear what everybody's thinking and what and maybe I'll hear it in your presentation. But that's my shift right now is how do I get more value from our existing clients and other clients because they want to do business with us and they like what we're doing and all those good things to increase that scalability.
Yeah. Would love to open it up. That's not really what this particular, we're focusing on leadership, but would love to hear what anyone has to say in terms of some of the things they're doing around what I would say a business development or expanding the market focus from a business perspective. So
Yeah.
anyone have any comments
Yeah.
you want to share?
For me, it's really about making sure the customer understands the value that you've created for them. And so, it's always easier to go do business with somebody you've done business before. So we try to make sure we do case studies, make sure we're doing quarterly business reviews to let them know, hey, we helped your team get this, or we helped you deliver this project, in a much shorter time period, or whatever the value that we're delivering for them is. But that's just kind of you've got to get good at capturing your wins, documenting your wins, and give
Promoting those,
what's that?
promoting those wins.
Yeah, you've got to promote the wins. You've got, everybody, the word that I think the cool buzzword right now is creating social proof.
Yeah.
Study is social proof. And, but, if you're trying to get more out of your existing customers, that's really a function of managing the account, whether
Right.
it's, incentivizing the account manager or the project delivery person on pull through business or, but also making sure everybody knows what are the other things that we could do for the customer. I'm in an IT consulting business, and if we do a networking project for that customer and we crush it and they love us, but we could also come back in and do a security project, or we can come back in and do an AI project. And if we don't tell them that we can do those things, they don't know. It's so
Good point.
that's a really, and while I don't know, I've spent a lot of money on marketing, various marketing agencies and marketing people, um, and I've had a lot of restarts with that over the last 15 years. But I would say in the last 2.5 to 3 years, we've got a definitive marketing leader. We've got a strategy, a communication strategy in place, and we are getting a lot more inbound from the customers than we had, than outbound. But it takes a concerted effort and a good plan.
Right.
Yeah,
and-
thank you. And is that Ken sharing? Am I driving the
yeah,
name?
that's Ken. That's
Yeah.
you know,
Okay,
Yeah.
Ken.
It
Thank
was very
you.
good. Thank you. That was very nice.
And I would say just to add to that, again, we're a little off topic, but I hope this is okay for everyone. And Michael, you and I have talked in the past anyway, you really need to identify who is that ideal client profile and proactively figure out who are those people you want to go after. So you've got the prospects, and then you have your current clients in terms of getting repeatable business, which Ken was talking about. And everyone needs to know what you're doing. Matt, I'm going to use you as an example. You and I did an exercise with your team that making sure everyone really has that elevator pitch down and being able to answer those questions about what it is you guys do. Because whether they're at a soccer game or wherever, when someone says, what do you do? And tell me more, be able to talk about some of those wins and really make those examples come to life is really important. And that includes not just general, but more specifically that they can give examples of some of the services and things like that. So I hope that's helpful.
Okay. Sorry for
Okay.
going off perspective.
Good. All right. So remind me, did I talk about stage 4? I don't think I did, right? So the last stage when you look at the leadership shift is the architect or the what they would call the sales leader. And this is where, the organization scales without dependency on the founder. I heard a speaker in the fall, and he was the CFO for one of Warren Buffett's companies. And he would say the companies they look for are companies where the leader could actually be gone for 30 days and the business runs beautifully. And that's a great analogy of kind of what happens in this stage. So it's the leader can be gone for 30 days and it's still smooth sailing. So the leader wins by designing the systems, the culture, and it's really maximizing that long-term enterprise value. And this to me is all about the operating system. So typical behaviors are succession and leadership pipeline, operating system maturity, the founder's not required in the operations. And it's really about the long-term thinking, the governance and metrics, and really that there's a bench from a leadership depth perspective. So
Dr. Loda has gotten, oops, sorry.
Yeah,
Dr.
hi, Tatiana.
Loda, hi, sorry, I was eating. Dr. Loda has gotten to the point where like he's the owner and I'm in charge, and like he was gone for like months on end and the business ran. But I was burnt out. We're open 7 days a week. So now I'm not saying that the practice should run without me because he's paying me to be here like 40 hours a week, but it would be nice to have like a traditional schedule where like the practice, like when I'm not here, it's running.
Right.
Because like we've already mastered what you just said.
Well, so I agree with you. So you mastered the
The
founder,
first part, yeah.
but he's in the day-to-day, but not really running the stuff. So there's things he mastered, but I would say
Yeah.
it's underneath you that the repeatable processes, I think there's opportunities for some of those things for right. So it's
Yeah.
not, so I hear what you're saying from the doctor's perspective, but I would say these things apply for underneath you because right now, if you weren't there, things would fall apart.
And I was just gonna say, like, if I wasn't here,
Just
it's
knowing,
gonna explode.
so again, each organization is a little different,
Yeah.
but this definitely applies to
Oh,
your
yeah.
organization underneath you. So there's got to be that depth going all the way down.
Yeah.
And that really includes every leader. If any of your leaders are gone, it shouldn't fall apart is really the idea here.
Yeah.
So the growth risk is really over centralization at the top, loss of speed if it's over engineered, loss of innovation. But the leadership truth is that, in this particular one, they shape the environment where others can make great decisions. So questions, comments before I move on here? All right, so just in its summary, the 4 stages really focus on this leadership shift, and it's really around 4 things. It's about designing systems, and I'm not talking about necessarily technology. It's how are you making decisions? How are you holding people accountable? What are your meeting rhythms? How are you communicating? There's a whole bunch of things that go into what I would say operating systems, enabling decisions, owning outcomes, and building capabilities. So I'd love to put it out there. What would you say is the hardest part would love someone to kind of just raise their hand, about this journey or the leadership shift that you're experiencing right now?
For me, we've been using EOS as a company for a few years, but we've only rolled it out to our management team. And actually, one of the things I'm working on this year is we're going to roll it out to the entire company. So everybody knows where they fit, what they're doing, and how it contributes to an overall company goal. And that's probably the biggest thing. I don't want to say people aren't accountable. They're accountable to make sure the customer's happy, but they don't understand how they're accountable to growing and making a business profitable. And that's one of the things we want to make sure we communicate and really drive home. We're an employee-owned company now, so and that's a big part of how we attract and retain talent. Is everybody has shares in the company now at this point. So
Love that.
anything that they do that increases our profitability or reduces, our overhead, is going to directly contribute to the value of their shares going up.
So, and I'm very familiar with the EOS. So at the beginning, when I mentioned I help leaders grow in two ways. One is I lead the CEO peer advisory group. There's a few people in my group on the call today, but I also, EOS is an operating system process, and I'm a Pinnacle guide. I was a scaling up guide for a long time. So I work similar, but it's a more personalized process than EOS. So, but similar. So very familiar with EOS as operating model. Anyone
Sure.
else want to share in terms of kind of the challenge in terms of this leadership shift? Okay. So let's go on. So there's one more phenomenon going on, which is pretty interesting, and it was a real aha for me a few years ago when I read about this concept. And this is the law of the lid. Has anyone heard of this? This is from John Maxwell's book.
Nope.
So he has a book, and it's called 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And John would say that people buy into leaders more than a vision. And the idea of the law of the lid is that leadership determines the effectiveness. So your leadership ability acts as a lid on the potential, on your potential, but the potential of your organization. So he would say if on a scale of, I don't know, 1 to 10, if your leadership is rated at an 8, no one in your organization will ever be higher than a 7. So his concept, the idea is the lid limits growth. And it will restrict the growth of your team or your organization. Even if you have strong talent, a weak leader will hinder that talent from bubbling up. So it doesn't mean leadership can be developed. So you can learn those skills, you can improve and raise that lid. And, it's your personal leadership ability will determine your personal effectiveness as well. So let me give you an example of this. So McDonald's, the founder is Dick and Maurice McDonald, created, as we all know, a successful restaurant system. They were innovators. They're the ones that really changed the way customer service, the kitchen was organized, that led to a new creation of food and beverage service, right? It's defined what an efficient and consistent fast food business looked like. But in 1952, they tried to market the McDonald's concept more broadly, and their effort was a failure. And the reason was simple. They lacked the leadership necessary to make this larger enterprise effective. So Dick and Maurice were good at single restaurant ownership. They understood how to run a business, to make their systems efficient, to cut costs, and to increase profits. So they were really efficient managers, but they were not leaders. And this kind of thinking clamped their lid, if you will, on what they could do. And so at their height, Dick and Maurice found themselves smack dab against that lid. And then they met Ray Kroc. And Ray Kroc had a higher leadership ability in this example. So when Ray visited the store, he had this vision right away of the potential. He had in mind, how do you, make this go nationwide and create and put it in hundreds of markets. And he soon struck a deal with Dick and Maurice, and he formed the McDonald's systems, which later became McDonald's Corporation, and we all know the story from there. Another example, Steve Jobs versus Steve Wozniak. So Steve Jobs had a strong leadership, and his lid was very high, which allowed Apple to become a world-class company, while Wozniak was brilliant from a technical perspective, and he alone could not achieve that same success. So again, just two different examples. So it's just something to think about, that even in your organizations, an exercise I do with some of the people who I coach is, looking at us, when you look at culture and you look at capabilities, where are your leaders in that graph? Because if your leader is like a 5 to 5, if you think of a graph like that, then the team is never going to be able to grow past that. So what can you do to help that leader grow and be coached and expand if they're able to do that? Or maybe it's the wrong job for them. So again, that's the idea, the law of the lid. questions or comments on that?
Oh, all good.
Yeah, good. So what I just thought we would just do quickly, it's just a quick self-check, but if you complete this 1 to 5 decisions require me to move forward. 1 is a yes, 5 is, not at all. Team escalates issues quickly. To you, I attend most operating meetings. Business slows when I step away. Leaders wait for my approval. It's just a good self-check to say, where are you in those 4 stages? You don't need to share, but it's just a good self-check. And then, as you reflect on that, what leadership barriers are you experiencing today that are impacting your ability to scale? Are you the bottleneck? What really must change first, and what leadership capability must continue to evolve? So the last concept I just want to do, and I will send you the tool I'm going to send you has to do with this concept, but it's a bit of a shift from what we were talking about, but the focus is really more on the business versus in the business. And the focus is on taking care of the people who actually is helping you run the business. So when you look at that, and let's say you have some really good leaders in place, who has been entrusted to you as a leader? If your people described your leadership when you're not in the room, what would they say that you care most about? What does your team most need from you right now? Is it time? Is it clarity? Is it courage? Is it coaching? Is it accountability? What am I as the leader, giving them? And where's the gap between what your people need from you and how you're currently showing up? So again, a little different shift in topic, but really important as you look at other leaders underneath you or what your team needs from you. The self-tests and just some of those things, again, the tool I'm sending you is a little bit of an assessment on that last piece, because, we need to really understand kind of what the truth is, and it's not always our truth. Sometimes it's the truth of what others that you're leading before you can change things. So I always, hopefully, as I said when I started out, I'm really looking for these workshops. They're not meant to get too deep, but it's really meant to share some insight on a topic. Hopefully there's an aha there. I will share a tool with you, which I'll send to you after. But I always love to end my discussions, whether it's with coaching or in our CEO peer advisory groups, we've talked about throughout the year. When you look at this content, is there, a behavior, that you want to stop doing? Is there something that maybe you heard about today you want to start doing? Or how are you going to delegate better? How are you going to empower other people? Is there a system I really need to build? And then, I'm big on a big takeaway. So would love to hear if there are any ahas and any takeaways or a new concept possibly from today that you heard that could be helpful.
Definitely a doer. And I think I might be the bottleneck.
And is that a surprise, Touch? I mean, was this,
No,
you kind of knew it, but is this kind of making
no,
it
it's
a little
not a
clear?
surprise. I think it's a little bit of like, I don't want to have like excuses, but like I have a great, and we've talked about this, like I have a great middle management team. They weren't here, so I had to fill in, but like now it's just getting them to like, I need to empower them, but then they need to empower their team. So I'm trying to empower their team when it should really be them.
Okay.
Like instead of me trying to empower 50 people, because I am like influential people like me and
Need to
whatever,
push it
that's
down.
I can't do that. I can't, it's not working. So they need to, yeah, I need to push it down. So.
Good. Well, thank you for sharing that. Anyone else would love to hear from someone else just in terms of any ahas or something you may focus on?
I like that FID concept. That's an interesting way to kind of couch it and think about the upper limit of an individual, but also of a company. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, good. Glad that was helpful. Anyone else? Okay, so and Soren shared he is working with EOS. Um to the system to shatter that lid also has to do with making sure your systems and processes are in place. To transition really from the doer to that architect stage, you need a customized business operating model to help you drive growth. Pinnacle is a business operating model that I am very involved with, really helping to, and it's really concepts that have been distilled from leadership and management classics, composed of principles and practices and tools selected by your experienced guide, which in this case is me. But what sets Pinnacle apart really from other business operating models is its emphasis on a flexible approach tailored to each client's unique circumstances. It really is about people, purpose, playbooks, and perform. And just real quick, let's just talk about those very quickly. And, really people is, do you have the right people sitting in the right seats, doing the right things? And what I mentioned earlier is as there's sometimes when you're starting, there's people who were great, they were part of your organization for such a long time, but as you continue to shift your needs, your focus, they may not be in the right seat anymore. You may need to put them doing something different. They may not be the right fit in general, but it's really important to continue to evaluate your team based on where you are in your growth journey. Purpose, you need to always start with why, set a compelling mission, clear vision, authentic values, and develop a winning strategy around that. Playbooks is really important to be able to document and optimize your core processes. My daughter just started a new job in December, and it's a company that's about 5 million in revenue. She was a fourth person in this particular role, and it was so clear to me because the first three were there from the beginning, and the processes evolved, but there was no onboarding processes for her. And, as they continue to scale and you're bringing now people who weren't there from the beginning, you need these playbooks, you need these documented processes to help people quickly scale up and be productive in your organization. And that's really what playbooks is all about. Performance, you need to measure what matters and then manage it. You need to plan and track goals on an annual, quarterly, and weekly cadence. And if you do all those things, profit will come as a result of mastering these things, and you'll continue to scale up that Valley of Death mountain. So again, just wanted to give you an overview of what the operating model is all about. So just, real quick, it's just really thinking about what's holding you back from growing and scaling. Is it something in your operating model? What about your leadership capabilities, whether it's yours personally, whether it's people in your organization, maybe you need to think about and change and continue to evolve in order not to be that constraint from a scaling perspective. And then just real quick, I've got a few other workshops each month coming, and they're on different topics. Again, just really focusing on one topic, one tool, and hopefully walking away with it to do. Hope you can make that. Feel free. I, would love to chat with you further. If you're interested, you can scan the QR code. It'll be a link to my calendar, and would love to have a 30-minute conversation if that's helpful. And if you're interested in the book about Pinnacle, I'm happy to send you a copy. Just my email's there, and send me your information where I can send you a hard copy, and I'll be happy to send that to you as well. So I really appreciate you being part of this. Happy to stay on, and if there's any feedback or any questions, would love to chat further about it. Always looking to improve these and just looking for different ways to bring more value.